Out now in select theaters and on demand from our old friends at IFC Midnight, Farrell stars Scout Taylor-Compton, Halloween, as she fights to survive a ravenous outbreak that threatens to transform her and her fellow campers into flesh-thirsty cannibal zombies. There's also a little bit of a werewolf mythos found in the early setup of Mark H. Young's assorted storyline, and the director, in the below interview, admits that he really wanted to combine his favorite elements in horror to hopefully come up with a fresh take on the creature feature. Scout Taylor-Compton also joins in on the fun and talks about how much she loved wielding a shotgun in Farrell and how making a Hallmark movie is much harder than making a horror movie. She also reminded me that she grew up in a mortuary and, as a result, was born to kick ass in a backwoods, blood and guts horror thriller. Your best friend has just been infected with a horrifying virus that will soon turn her into a rabid, rampaging cannibal zombie. Do you A. try to save her, or B. kill her before she kills you? That's the nightmarish scenario 6 students find themselves facing when their celebratory camping trip goes terrifyingly wrong. One by one, each falls victim to the Farrell disease, until only Alice, Scout Taylor-Compton, Rob Zombie's Halloween, and Jules, Olivia Lucardi, It Follows, 2 girlfriends testing the waters of their new relationship, are left standing, armed with a shotgun and holed up in a remote cabin. They've got a hell of a fight before them if they hope to survive. The Walking Dead's Lou Temple co-stars in this grisly blend of survival thriller and contagion shocker. Farrell came to select theaters and VOD on May 25th. Dread Central, would you call Farrell a werewolf movie, and was the idea for the film ever going in more of that direction early on? Mark H. Young, honestly, it was kind of a blend of my favorite horror mythologies. I kind of see a little bit of zombies, vampires, and werewolves. I just wanted to do something new. DC, Scout, your character Alice gets to wreak a lot of havoc. Is this one of the most physical roles you've had and the most gunplay you've been required to do? Scout Taylor-Compton, you know, ever since the first Halloween, that one was pretty brutal and the second one was pretty intense. I've just progressed through my years of physicality, and every role that I have chosen, I look for that. I'm a huge fan of Resident Evil and Alien, and just like a badass chick. My earlier years, I kind of took on a character that was very vulnerable, and as I've gotten older I guess I take on much stronger women that can fight and take care of themselves and don't need any help. The kind of character that's in charge. DC, this is the first time you've been in a film with Lou Temple since Halloween, but you both seem really comfortable with each other on screen. Have you guys become better friends on the convention circuit? Because I think this is the first time you've actually been on screen together, right? STC, yeah, me and Lou, it is the convention circuit. It's the Rob Zombie family. Even if we haven't worked together in any of our movies, we're just always so connected as family. Getting to work with Lou, I absolutely freaking love Lou. He's like one of my favorite human beings, and he's just so talented. And I always forget that, especially as an actor. You know him as a person, so then when you get to see their acting it's like, holy fuck, dude, you're so talented. Especially in this, he just blew me away, and I'm so honored that I actually got to work with him. DC, yeah, it's good to see him in a meteor role. He is good in the film, and I think horror fans are going to get a kick out of seeing you two together. STC, yeah, I hope it's not the last. I would love to work with Lou again. We always say whatever project we can find that we can work together on, we do it. You say that with a few actors that you get along with and lose one of them. DC, it looks like you came aboard Farrell early on. Mark, did you guys work together to develop the story and round out the casting a little bit? Was Scout the first person that came aboard? MHY, ironically, Lou was the first person that came on board and probably had something to do with influencing Scout to come on board. She was the one that really got the budget going. She's the glue that holds the entire cast together. We needed somebody like Scout with chops to be able to pull that off. It was a brutal role because you had to be secretly vulnerable and outwardly strong and still kick major ass. DC, yeah, you were definitely wielding that shotgun a lot. STC, laughs, yes. Dude, I felt so powerful holding the shotgun. Knowing that it's not real and I'm not using it in a real setting, I don't know, there's just something about it where I feel strong. DC, Mark, can you talk about the feral makeup and the physicality of the actors once they turned rabid? Some of the stunt work is pretty impressive. MHY, obviously, it was a very small budget film, so we actually used stuntmen for the feral characters, which served us well. The unfortunate part is that they ended up spending an awful lot of time in a chair. It took quite a while to put the feral makeup on. I think it was like 3 hours minimum. But we had an amazing guy, Jerry Constantine, who's kind of like a bastion in the horror world. He just does some really great stuff. DC, a lot of that stunt work took place inside of the cabin. Scout, that cabin was a soundstage that you've worked on before, right? How strange was it to film a horror movie there when the last time you filmed there it was for a Hallmark movie? MHY, oh my god, is that true? STC, laughs, yes, you noticed. That makes my heart so happy. Dude, honestly, it brought back a lot of memories. I was like 16 when I did that Hallmark movie, but I remember that cabin. As soon as we came back, I was just like, there's no way. This is my second home. So, it was cool, so I knew my bearings, but it was interesting doing it in these two different worlds. I did catch myself when I was doing feral, like, wait a minute, I'm not doing a Hallmark movie. This is a horror movie. It was funny to go back. MHY, wait, you didn't cave heads in with a baseball bat in the Hallmark show? STC, no, I fell in love and I made soup and I wanted to be a doctor. In like corsets and big gold skirts. That's crazy, that's harder than doing feral. Doing something like that is so out of my comfort zone. DC, so, how does feral compare to the other horror films you've worked on? Do you still get a little freaked out watching yourself in something like this, or are you a more hardened horror fan by now? STC, well, I am. Growing up in a mortuary with my mortician father definitely sparked something in me at a young age. I've always been interested in these type of movies, but I've always been interested more in how they're done. I've never been afraid in any horror movie. I'm the girl that can just point out everything and it all looks very fake to me. I think that's why I like being on horror sets. I just like how they're made. I get giddy when I'm on a horror set. I grew up with my dad showing me The Exorcist when I was 10 and being downstairs, there were dead bodies everywhere. It just kind of stuck. Scout Taylor, a few weeks back we let you guys know that director Alex Asia, High Tension, The Hills Have Eyes, was joining forces with producer Sam Raimi, The Evil Dead, for a new horror film, Crawl. And today we have word via THR that the film has found its star with actress Scout Taylor, the Maze Runner. She will play a young woman who, while struggling to save her father during a Category 5 hurricane, finds herself trapped inside a flooding house and fighting for her life against Florida's most savage and feared predators. Aja wrote the most recent draft of the script, which was initially penned as a spec by Sean and Michael Rasmussen. Raimi is producing Paramount's low-budget horror movie with Craig J. Flores, 300, Rise of an Empire. Are you excited for this new horror movie? Make sure to hit us up and let us know what you think in the comments below or on Facebook, Twitter, and/or Instagram. Longtime Dread friends know we've radically reshaped ourselves over the past year. In addition to maintaining our mission to curate, educate, and entertain horror fans, we launched Dread Central Presents, the genre distribution arm of Epic Pictures. We've been proud to bring you a quality catalog of diverse horror offerings like The Lodgers, Imitation Girl, Terrifier, and our latest release, available on VOD since May 29th, is Director's Cut. The film is directed by Adam Rifkin and stars Missy Pyle, Penn Jillette, Carrie Hamlin, and Hayes MacArthur. Despite building an enviable filmography, this is one of Rifkin's rare forays into horror. It's also one of the rare occasions when he's directed a film he didn't write. We were lucky enough to sit down with Rifkin recently, where we discussed Director's Cut, his cult labor The Dark Backward, and his final conversation with Bill Paxton, who tragically passed away in 2017. As our sit-down was extensive, and probably too much to consume in a single dose, we're presenting it in two parts. Give the trailer and synopsis for Director's Cut a look-see below, followed by part 1 of our interview with Adam Rifkin. Be sure to check back next week for part 2. Synopsis: the ultimate meta-movie, Director's Cut is an insane, cinematic sleight of hand trick that reflects on itself, much like the stage persona of its co-star and creator, world-famous illusionist Penn Jillette. Here, teamed with acclaimed director Adam Rifkin, Jillette conjures a mind-bending, genre-defying movie within a movie mashup that's part narrative thriller, part documental case. Herbert Blunt Jillette is a crowdfunding contributor for the new Adam Rifkin feature Knocked Off. Unhappy with the film, he steals the footage and kidnaps actress Missy Pyle to star in his own Director's Cut. Dread Central, can you introduce yourself to some of our younger readers? Adam Rifkin: yeah, I'm Adam Rifkin, I'm a writer and a director and, sometimes, I act, but I would definitely not consider myself an actor. I would never besmirch the fine people who take the profession seriously and devote their life to the craft. I just like to ham it up every once in a while. But I'm definitely not a professional actor. DC, your filmography is kind of all over the place. You've done some family-friendly flicks for Disney and Pixar, as well as some high drama. As a true Renaissance filmmaker, how does writing and directing horror compare to other genres? Well, my first love of movies from the time I was a little kid was the love of monster movies. When I was about 4 or 5 years old, I remember vividly, my grandfather bought me an issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine. I was absolutely fascinated by the pictures of all the classic monsters: Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, the creature from the Black Lagoon. And that got me started on this obsession with monster movies. I got my first film education in Chicago, which is where I ran from, watching all the classic horror movies on a show called Svengoolie. And he's still doing it. These days, every regional market had its own local horror show host. LA had Elvira, New York had John Zacharel, and Chicago has Svengoolie. This was the era of local television, and so a monster show host would introduce this week's movie, and during the commercials they'd do some little shtick about the movie and some trivia. So, on Savenguli, I saw all the classic Universal monster movies, I watched all the Hammer horror films from England, I saw all the AIP drive-in movies, I saw all the Japanese giant monster movies. It was a real cinematic education. But I've never really made a horror movie before director's cut in my professional career, and, actually, I'd say that still holds true. I know director's cut is sort of a horror film, but it's more of a very black comedy or horror comedy. So, I still have yet to make a genuinely scary horror film. DC, your first film that I saw was The Dark Backward, released in 1991. That one also kind of straddles the line between horror and deadpan, black comedy. I just read on IMDb that it's now considered a bona fide cult classic. I am very happy about that, I'm grateful for that. DC, it's been almost a year since the passing of Bill Paxton, one of the stars of The Dark Backward. Can you talk about what it was like working with him back when he was just a young actor cutting his teeth? Bill Paxton, Judd Nelson, and Wayne Newton in The Dark Backward are, sure. To back up just a bit further, The Dark Backward was the first screenplay that I ever wrote. It definitely has horror elements, specifically body horror, but it absolutely is a very black comedy as well. At the time when I wrote it, I was trying to get my first movie made, and I knew that no one was going to give me a lot of money to direct. I was young and just out of the gate. So, in lieu of explosions and big special effects, I tried to create something unusual enough that its offbeat nature would get it some attention. I didn't think I'd get attention for it in any other way. I didn't think I'd be able to have stars or big special effects or anything really. But if it's unusual enough, I figured, maybe it will stand out. What ultimately did end up happening is we did get stars in it. Judd Nelson, at the time, was a big enough name to carry the whole movie. And Bill Paxton was just coming off of Aliens and Near Dark and Weird Science, and he was very funny, a very hot young actor. Wayne Newton has always been an icon. James Caan was just coming off of Misery, so he was flying high. Rob Lowe has always been a big star. So, the fact that I got these stars was a shock to me. But really, the reason we got them was because the script was so left of center, they'd never been offered anything like it before, which is why they all signed on to do it. Working with Bill was absolutely one of the greatest joys of my life. We became very close friends on that movie and remained friends for all these years. In fact, a week before he tragically passed, I had just gone over to his place and to show him a rough cut of the film I'd just done with Burt Reynolds called The Last Movie Star. I showed him the rough cut and he really liked it. We had lunch that day and he actually told me that he had to go into surgery and he was nervous about it. Those words will haunt me forever. The fact that Bill Paxton isn't around anymore is one of the great losses of our time. DC, wow, Adam, I had no idea you guys were so close. I know our readers will appreciate your emotional recollections. Anyone who's a Bill Paxton fan should know, he was as great in real life as he was on screen. He was just a great guy, a funny guy, a really generous and wonderful person. DC, that's great to hear, because he was one of those actors who always seemed to bring a bit of himself to the roles he played. After watching a few of his films, you feel like you actually know him. Thanks again for sharing your memories. Let's jump back to director's cut. How did it all come to fruition? I'll tell you how it came to me. As you may know, I didn't write director's cut. I usually write what I direct, but in this instance, the screenplay was written by Penn Jillette, of Penn and Teller fame. I had made a film called Look that was a drama, shot entirely on surveillance cameras. And Look had done well on the art house scene and spawned a TV series on Showtime. When Penn Jillette saw the movie, unbeknownst to me, it had already been out and gone and was only available on video. One day, late on a Friday night, I get a Facebook message from Penn Jillette. Of course, I was home on a Friday night because I have no life. He said some very complimentary things about Look, which he had just watched with a group of friends. He had reached out to his manager and agent and said, "I want to get in touch with Adam Rifkin," and they said, "We'll look into it first thing Monday morning." Well, instead of waiting, he found me on Facebook and saw that we had mutual friends. He sent me a direct message saying, "I loved Look. I want to talk to you about it. Here's my phone number." Since it was getting late, I didn't want to call him on the phone. I'd never met him before, you know. So, I wrote him back on Facebook saying, "Thank you so much. I'm a fan of yours. I'd love to discuss the movie with you. I know it's late, so here's my phone number. Feel free to call me anytime over the weekend." 2 seconds after I hit send, my phone were ringing, and it was Penn. Check back next week for part 2 of our interview with Adam Rifkin. Just 2 weeks ago, we wrote about Fangoria presence in the first novel to be released under that title, which is Preston Fassel's Our Lady of the Inferno. Today, Fangoria Presents has unveiled the second book that will be released through their label, and it's Michael J. Seidlinger's My Pet Serial Killer. Claire is a student of forensic science, Victor is the gentleman killer. Subverting expectations, Claire seduces Victor and keeps him in her apartment as her pet, her darkest secret, before taking to the road to revisit her past pets in one final, bone-chilling conclusion. Beautifully written, provocative to read, Seidlinger delves into Claire's motivations and impetus to present a compelling psychosexual portrait of a woman obsessed with performance, with power, with sex, and with gore. Early praise has already come in, with the Book of Freaks author Jamie Iredell stating, "Seidlinger takes the slasher, horror movie, snuff film, found footage, webcam porn, and serial killer docudrama, cuts them all to pieces, pulls out their internal organs, reorganizes them in an aesthetically pleasing arrangement, and shows us a story that is at once hilarious, pathetically sad, and a brilliant social critique. This is one where you'll want to eat the offal." The book will be released September 18th.